Have you ever felt paralyzed by rejection? Whether it's being ghosted after a promising date, not getting the job you worked so hard to land, or being told your ideas just aren't good enough, rejection has a way of cutting deeply. It makes people question their worth, retreat from opportunities, and carry emotional weight that lingers far beyond the moment itself. Rejection is painful because it feels personal. It taps into ancient fears of exclusion, inadequacy, and failure. And in a culture that glorifies success, perfection, and public approval, rejection can feel like social death. But what if this suffering isn't inevitable? What if there was a mindset tested by warriors, emperors, and philosophers that could make rejection not just tolerable, but meaningless in its emotional power? That's where Stoicism enters the conversation. While many believe Stoicism is about suppressing emotions or becoming unfeeling, the truth is more nuanced. Stoicism teaches the development of emotional mastery, mental clarity, and practical resilience. It's not about avoiding pain. It's about facing life's inevitable challenges, including rejection, with strength and serenity. This video explores 3 core Stoic strategies that directly target the psychological impact of rejection. By the end, viewers will have a clear understanding of how to make themselves rejection-proof, not by avoiding pain, but by transforming their relationship with it. Principle 1. Control and acceptance. One of the foundational pillars of Stoic philosophy is the dichotomy of control. Epictetus, a former slave-turned philosopher, put it plainly: some things are within our control, and some things are not. Rejection almost always involves an element that is out of one's control, someone else's decision, preferences, timing, or emotional state. Yet people tend to internalize that outcome as a personal failure. This is where the emotional damage begins. The Stoic approach begins with a question: what part of this situation was within your control? In the case of a failed job interview, what was controllable? Preparation, attitude, the clarity and honesty of one's answers. Punctuality. What wasn't controllable? The internal decision-making of the employer, their biases, the number of other candidates. When people confuse what they control with what they don't, they suffer unnecessarily. The Stoic path to freedom starts by drawing a firm mental line. Emotional energy is directed only toward what can be influenced. Everything else is acknowledged and released. This practice isn't passive resignation. It's active, intentional discipline. Over time, it rewires the response to rejection. Instead of spiraling into self-blame or rumination, the mind moves quickly toward constructive thought. What can I learn? What will I do next? This principle alone can dramatically reduce the emotional intensity of rejection by transforming it into a moment of clarity rather than chaos. Principle 2. Reframing perception. If the first principle teaches where to focus one's attention, the second teaches how to interpret what happens. Rejection hurts because of the meaning assigned to it. A failed relationship might be seen as proof that one is unlovable. A denied pitch might be taken as confirmation of mediocrity. A canceled opportunity might feel like a sign of permanent failure. Stoicism challenges this instinct. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and practicing Stoic, wrote extensively about the power of perception. He noted, if you are pained by external things, it is not they that disturb you, but your own judgment of them. In other words, events have no inherent meaning. It is the interpretation that creates suffering or peace. A rejection can be reframed as redirection. It can be seen as a filter, helping identify where alignment does not exist. It can be viewed as training, toughening the mind and preparing the individual for greater opportunities. Consider the example of a creative entrepreneur whose project is publicly criticized. The average reaction is to retreat in shame. The Stoic response is to analyze the criticism rationally, extract what is useful, discard the rest, and view the moment as part of the necessary friction that polishes one's craft. Seneca once said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction. Rejection is friction. It refines." By consciously reframing rejection, not as failure, but as feedback, clarity, or challenge, the emotional narrative changes. Confidence is no longer tied to outcome, but to the mindset that engages with outcomes constructively. This shift in perception is not a denial of reality. It is a disciplined reinterpretation of it, a way of choosing strength over suffering. Principle 3. Building resilience through practice discomfort. The final Stoic strategy for becoming rejection-proof lies in voluntary discomfort, a practice deeply embedded in ancient Stoic training. Seneca, a wealthy Roman statesman, would periodically dress in rough clothing and eat the simplest food, even though he had access to luxury. He did this not to suffer unnecessarily, but to ask himself, "Is this what I feared?" By voluntarily embracing discomfort, Stoics condition themselves to face life's difficulties without fear. This practice, applied to the modern context, is one of the most powerful tools for overcoming fear of rejection. Many people avoid new opportunities, not because they lack potential, but because they are terrified of the word no. Public speaking, starting a YouTube channel, asking someone out, submitting an application, sharing a personal idea. The anxiety surrounding these actions isn't about the action itself, it's about the imagined emotional cost of rejection. Voluntary exposure to small, controlled rejections is a modern adaptation of Stoic discomfort training. This might mean intentionally making small requests that might be declined, speaking up in uncomfortable settings, or sharing creative work with the awareness it might be criticized. Each small exposure builds emotional calluses. Over time, what once triggered anxiety becomes familiar. The individual becomes stronger not because rejection stops happening, but because it no longer defines them. Resilience, in the Stoic sense, is not the absence of pain, it is the presence of strength despite it. To become rejection-proof is not to become numb. It is to become unshakable in the face of life's unpredictability. 3 Stoic strategies guide this transformation. Control and acceptance, focusing emotional energy only on what can be influenced and releasing what cannot. Reframing perception, redefining rejection not as a verdict, but as redirection, clarity, and refinement. Building resilience, intentionally facing discomfort and micro-rejections to develop a deeper emotional backbone. Rejection will never disappear from life, but its power over the individual can. For those seeking strength, not just in appearance, but in essence, this is the path. Viewers are encouraged to reflect. Which of these principles feels most relevant right now? Have there been moments in the past where these strategies could have changed everything? If this message resonates, share it with someone facing their own battle with rejection. Like and subscribe for more content exploring how timeless philosophy can solve modern struggles. And most importantly, remember this: rejection is not a verdict on who you are. It is a moment. What you become after that moment, that's entirely up to you.